Your corp name is copyrighted. Prepare for war. These were the words of Code Bandit, the leader of a corporation that declared war on ours no less than 10 days after the formation of Interstellar Booty Hunters. And their corp name, it was just Booty Hunters. How did this happen, and how did we deal with it? Well, as explained in the preceding EVE Online story videos, I finally got this wild and crazy idea about forming an exploration corp that might be capable of some PvP every now and then. Most people told me I was crazy. You have to understand that most EVE corps fail for many reasons. Running a successful EVE corp takes a lot of time, hard work, and experience. I look back now and see a real noob when it comes to understanding leadership, time management, and especially conflict in EVE. To make matters worse, explorers in EVE were almost all solo operators. They did not coordinate with other explorers. They competed with them to get the space treasures before anyone else. So getting these people to be a team was seen as incredibly unlikely. However, I did have some advantages that average EVE players don't. Obviously, I have the inherent personality advantage of being likable, communicating well, and always motivated by positive visions. I also had been making many friends in the exploration community. Up until 2013, exploration in EVE was a very niche profession that often required mentorship. Therefore, I had been mentored by many, and I had mentored many others. The plan was to coordinate when it came to looking for exploration sites. You could join up with another explorer to run through combat sites faster, or pass on information to a friend if you didn't have time to pursue a lead, or share the most guarded and elite secrets to making good money in exploration. We would also have occasional adventures into Losec, the realm of pirates, where we could gain higher rewards with higher risk, maybe even engage in some PvP combat, and add a little excitement to the routine. I saw the name Booty Hunters was taken, and that was fine. I wanted a name that sounded like we were well traveled among the stars, so Interstellar Booty Hunters sounded legit to me. Many friends knew of my endeavors, and I was able to snake charm about 10 people to join us in the first 2 weeks, which is pretty good for such an unusual corporation. Almost every other exploration corp was inactive or failed for any number of reasons. I had determination to make this work, and in time we would become the best exploration corp in EVE. Of course, in the first 2 weeks we didn't have a lot of consistent content. We were just getting people in and learning how to coordinate. We were not a corp of total noobs though. Only a few of us were relentlessly active like myself. Before I get into the juicy part of this corp formation, let me explain to you a little bit about how the war declaration system works in EVE Online, for those of you who don't play or who are new to the game. There are only certain parts of space where you can freely attack another player without intervention from the Concord police force. High security space, or HiSec, are the only places where Concord can protect you from attack against other players. Luckily, this is a vast area of space controlled by the NPC empires, and where most players start out. Even in HiSec, there are exceptions. If someone is a criminal with a security rating below 5, anyone can engage them without consequence, but criminals do not normally live in HiSec for that reason. Anyone who is a suspect, meaning they've done something like take someone else's stuff without asking, are susceptible to attack for a 15-minute timer, and Concord will not interfere on either side. And finally, if a corporation has declared war on another corp and paid the bureaucratic fees to do so, then those two corps are free to engage each other in combat anytime, anywhere, as long as they are still at war, which could be as little as a week or as long as, well, forever. Now, since 2013 things have changed. To declare war in 2021, both corporations have to have a player-owned citadel or space station to designate as the war headquarters. It can be any type of player-owned citadel. It could be a refinery, an industrial station, a powerful fortizar, whatever, and this takes some effort to deploy. War decks nowadays take more planning and skill to execute. In 2013, citadels did not exist, so any corporation, no matter the size, could declare war on another for a fee. War-decking corporations who declared war on new corporations who were unable to fight back were called griefers, which still exist to this day. These particular griefers were called booty hunters. They weren't huge, barely 5 or 6 people, but they weren't explorers. Their sole purpose seemed to be to prey on the weak. Our corp was about 10 people, but the only one with any kind of PvP experience was me, and only a few of us were very active, so this looked very bad for us. Now, most of the time, the defensive corp will simply dock up in stations for a week until the war deck has expired. It takes money to renew the war deck every week. This is what Care Bears do, or people who have no taste for competitive gameplay. Although I was nervous about the situation, I was not a Care Bear. I was encouraged to see that a few of our members readied their cruisers and battlecruisers for combat and brought them to our HQ system, and then nothing really happened. At first. The war targets were barely seen in our area of Caldari space. It seemed that they didn't want to come up there from Minmatar space to do anything. So we went on about our business. I passed out one night while exploring in my Ishtar-class assault cruiser. I woke up the next morning to find myself in a pod, in a station, and my glorious Ishtar had been destroyed and everything in it lost forever. Apparently I had fallen asleep at a Stargate before logging out of the game, and Code Bandit and friends found me and blew my ship up. They began hanging out in our HQ system, just a few of them, and trolling us with things like, "That name is copyrighted." Either we had to close our corp or pay them some licensing fees or something. Also, none of my corp mates were particularly active and prepared to fight. Well, I wasn't going to be bullied and pushed around. I had to at least show them a good resistance, even if I failed. One day it was just me and Code Bandit in system. I had seen him in an Amarr Empire Curse class cruiser. At the time, a Curse was not a ship I was that familiar with. I had a Vexor Navy issue cruiser available, a ship I was able to inflict massive amounts of damage with. I undocked from the station to find Code Bandit waiting for me in this Curse from some distance away. I locked up his relatively puny cruiser, warp disrupted it so that it couldn't escape, and engaged with heavy drones, ogres I think it was. Surprisingly, he engaged back with drones as well. They were medium drones. He was not going to inflict as much damage as I, but 2 things surprised me. One was speed. He was able to comfortably orbit my Vexor Navy and literally fly rings around it at over 20 kilometers distance. This was out of range of my stasis webifier, which would have slowed him down. The other thing that surprised me was his energy neutralizers, which were able to drain my energy from that distance. Apparently this was the Curse's unique ability, since most other cruisers can barely drain energy from a ship more than 10 kilometers away. This meant that anything that used capacitor power, such as fast propulsion, turrets, shield boosters, or armor repairs, would eventually be shut down with a drained capacitor, and this is what started to happen. I was unable to activate my turrets or micro warp drive, which could have got me a little closer. Luckily, my armor tank was passive and pure buffer, meaning that I would not be using capacitor power to constantly repair my armor damage. And most of my firepower was in drones, not turrets anyway, so although I could not catch him, I was not rendered toothless like I might have been in some other ship. However, my damage from the heavy drones was just not applying. Those slow and cumbersome ogres were having trouble keeping up with the fast and nimble Curse, and only inflicting glancing blows. I recalled the heavy drones and deployed medium drones instead, and this made a difference, but the race to kill the other was getting close, too close for either of us. And then Code revealed his trump card. Another character and an Augurer arrived on grid that was not in his corp. The Augurer specialized in remote armor repairs. It's basically a healing ship. From an unreachable distance, the Augurer began repairing the armor of Code Bandit's Curse. Code Bandit was probably dual boxing and running 2 subscribed accounts at the same time. This takes some coordination, but it's very common in EVE. This did flag the Augurer as suspect, meaning even though I was not at war with that character, I could legally attack it too without interference from Concord, but it was too far away. In the realm of fairness, This would mean that I was winning. However, this was a griefer who had to resort to dual boxing to beat me, and this is Eve, where the idea of fairness isn't really that relevant. In the end, I was about to lose my Navy Vexor, and our corp would be way behind in this little war. However, I suspect the management of dual boxing overwhelmed Code Bandit's attention. I had regained just enough capacitor to get a cycle of thrust from my micro warp drive. This allowed me to pull beyond the warp disruption range of the curse, and I escaped into warp. In my mind, this war was far from over. I knew they could be beat, and I was looking forward to rallying the rest of the corp to destroy them. However, Code Bandit left our system. The remaining days of the war were uneventful, as they had gone back to Minmatar space and were nowhere to be seen. They'd left us alone. I think they were hoping for some easy Care Bear victims, and they found that this new corp who had stolen their name had too much potential to be trifled with. After the conclusion of the war, our membership began to rise. I solicited many veteran explorers to join. Most did not, a few did. One in particular had at least as much charisma as me, and was able to help immensely with recruitment. The character I refer to has actually changed hands several times. The player behind the character is very colorful and interesting, which would later lead to some fascinating content. I will call this person Wu Tang. Wu Tang and I decided that at least having a small base in a wormhole system would give us some opportunities in both exploration and PvP. For those who are unfamiliar with this, let me explain. Wormholes are a cosmic signature that can be found only with scanner probes. Just like any wormhole in science fiction, they are a shortcut to other parts of space, but they are also temporary. They eventually collapse, either from overuse or as a natural part of their life cycle. These wormholes can lead to other parts of known space, where systems are still charted on the star map and navigable through stargates, or they can lead to unknown systems that are not on the star map and have no stargates. The only way to travel to those remote, isolated systems are through wormholes. These unknown systems are the realm of the sleeper NPCs, which are mysterious automated things, and often have valuable resource in the higher tiers of wormholes. After scanning down dozens of wormholes and investigating dozens of systems, Wu Tang eventually found a Class 2 system that wasn't inhabited by anyone else. This system would always have a wormhole to Losec, and at least one other to anywhere in Eve, including other unknown systems. Wormhole systems go up to Tier 6, where things are far more challenging, but at a Tier 2, and us being new to wormholes, this seemed like the perfect location for us to set up shop. "It's a damn good wormhole," Wu Tang said. That's it for this Eve story. In the next episode, owning our wormhole, cultural divides within our corp, drunken people, and drama, and another griefer. Also, Interstellar Booty Hunters is recruiting. We are no longer primarily an exploration corp. We are now a small gang PvP corp of laid-back friends. Although we are competitive, we fly for fun and memorable content worthy of interesting stories. We are accepting Omega pilots who have been playing for at least a month, but noobs to PvP are currently welcome for long-term training and growth. Contact Maximilian Bonaparte in-game, or find the in-game chat channel Booty Tiki Bar. There you can also find a link to our Discord. Until next time, space friends, and stay tuned for retakes. Maybe even engage in some PvP combat. Retake. I was unable to activate my Mork retake. And the use of armor reppers to constantly repair retake.
Bastard with the assault damage control too. I was like, that thing feels way too hard. Like, it should not. Oh, I'm supposed to pod you, aren't I?